I want to talk about some developments in the last 10 years that have increased my personal sovereignty in every aspect of life, with money, with finding women, with transportation, with food, with many aspects. And these technologies keep coming on, and when I even think that there is a problem that I cannot solve personally, well, something shows up that completely changes that scenario. While I was watching Kaiser report, and they were talking about Bitcoin and how Bitcoin is hard money, and hard money that makes you independent of the central banks, and you can save your money in that form, and it will appreciate. And it's also there is no counterparty risk. Somebody on the other end is not printing more bitcoins. There is a scarcity, and you can have confidence that this money will be around. And also, is decentralized. You don't need to get Uncle Sam's permission. He could not sanction you. He could not put blockage on you. But there are other technologies that have an effect of decentralizing many processes. Uh, and some economists, they talk about these things. I think that our future is a future of abundance. And even though we are going through growing pains, but this will pass, because we are entering a historical period in our civilization. What some philosophers would call it singularity. But well, when I was studying lasers, and the way laser light works is that there is a light inside the chamber, and every part of this chamber has a reflecting mirror. It's like being in a hole, and this light reflects many times inside the chamber. But when it hits this gas that's inside the chamber, it many times, or when one electron hits it, it gets absorbed and then released again with higher energy, and then it hits another atom of the gas, but this time with greater ferocity, and it releases electrons that are on higher shells, which in other words, it releases more potent, not electron, photons. So as after a little lag time, might be milliseconds or so, I don't know, I have to look at the numbers. The light that's really in this chamber is very much magnified. So what they'll do, they'll put a little, they'll wipe out a little bit of the mirror side, so there's like a little hole, and the light can come out. My God, that's a very strong laser light. You can use that laser light to cut metal, kill off Yankee ships. And I have a certain mindset, but something like that happens when many different technologies come in, and they each decentralize different processes, and they don't have like one has an impact, but that impact is not a singular impact. In fact, it gets magnified when then another technology comes in and does that. then another technology comes in. It has a network effect kind of magnification in productivity or in the results that you might get. So, well, then some other scientists would say that we are actually going through a zero marginal cost society where the evolution of technological processes make it possible to manufacture a lot of stuff or many different things or processes or services or things that at extremely low price. Well, usually when these kinds of economists, like a zero marginal cost economists, talk about this stuff, they would say that they would start to use the example of email, like you know how when email was first invented, it's simply a transfer of a message between two computers. It doesn't cost much money. It's like cost a few photons or a fraction of a cent of 1 cent, like a 1 millionth of a cent it costs to send this message over there. But then it evolved, and then now we can send videos and teleconference and well, each one of those things, like sending a regular text email, was an industry. It was a postal service. Things weren't so cheap and easy. I remember I had to do a lot of my communications with the schools, with the companies, with IRS, and I would have to get a printer, print the stuff out, go get the envelopes, and then mail it, which we still use for some forms. So the industry didn't die, but this industry is a ghost of what it really the natural evolution of it would have been had there not been email services, had there not been teleconferencing, had there not been instant messaging. So, but then it didn't end there because there were just like a laser light. All kinds of other processes came in, and they tacked on to email, and now they became all kinds of other services. And well, that's not the only technology. Now we have blockchain and trust protocols, which are like enable something like an email or transfer of messages between computers to become a valid legal contract or become a kind of money that only exists in cyberspace, like Bitcoin, or become many different kind of currencies. So we are getting into singularity. The way we are getting into it was very strange, and in fact, something like this hasn't happened in history. So when people look at it, they can't kind of figure out why are all these processes happening. But let's look at this in a different way. When we had to use snail mail, because of its limitation, because somebody had to take that mail, put it in a truck, spend money on gasoline, and take it to another destination, and they had to have many centers to sort this out. There wasn't just one industry technology. There was a whole cascade of things that they had to use to sort this mail and transport it. So all those technologies, they got truncated. They have some, they use some, but then it was transported into the electronic domain. Now some machine, some server does all that and sort it out and send it to the right address. So what I'm saying is that the singularity, it is just like a laser light. It magnifies any kind of processes, and also manufacturing of anything, manufacturing of a car, manufacturing of shoes, manufacturing of weapons. So these processes, they all the manufacturing is going towards zero marginal cost. It's it, people, they do not see it, because personally I wouldn't be going and buying AK-47s 10 years ago, and then buy AK-47s 5 years ago, and then buy AK-47s yesterday. I don't do that because that's not the kind of product that I use or I will ever use. But then I know about the mail and these other industries because I use them. I see that as time goes on, everything is becoming cheaper and more simpler to use or buy. Well, then it brings us to another discussion. Uh, well, before I get into this discussion, I want to talk about. I'm like a kind of philosopher that looks at the most minute things that happen in daily life, how I work, and learn from that. I think there is very few philosophers or thinkers that are like that. For example, Isaac Newton, he would spend hours looking at stuff. Like when he was in his teens, he would sit outside in the garden and look at everything for hours. In fact, well, they say, I don't think it was his observation, but say that he saw an apple fall and he was trying to reason why an apple fall. But I do something similar. I look at every single thing and try to make a model of it in a greater scheme of things. For example, I look at the economic disaster that we are in, and also in the daily life, the stuff I see. Well, actually, I work as a security guard, and I want to tell you what happened at work. That's kind of very interesting. But continue on this idea. I'm really a mathematician at heart. Mathematicians, they make models of things. They make models of processes. They make models of fluid flow, gas flow. They make models of the weather or clouds, something like that. Well, I don't go all the way. Well, usually when you make a model, then you assign variables, and then you write it into formulas. Well, that's the most condensed form of that modeling process. You start from general or particular observations, and you kind of assign variables to those particular tendencies, or you try to find the most important acting variables, and then from your general flow or construct that you have, you then make it into a formula or a general statement. In fact, there weren't very many formulas before Newton. There were observations and like a general tendencies that people or philosophers would say that when this happens, this will happen too. It was more like sets of ideas. But then, as time went on, mathematics progressed, and now we have variables. We try to zero in. Actually, in college, we had some discussion on dimensional analysis, which is like you try to find the dimensions that are significant, or variables that are significant in that process, and then write formulas. But oh, well, I wanna talk about one observation that's very important for what I'm going to go and explain, is that many companies that were successful in the United States and in the world, they were built in a certain time period. For example, the post office was built in the, by the act of Congress, and they used to use ponies, and then they gradually used carriages, and then also they started transporting money too. And money itself was in a paper form, and it was difficult to replicate money. It was there was certain amount of it, and but that as time went on, the post office evolved, and they started using trucks. Or I mean, you're getting the drift of where I'm going. But other companies, they're not long-running companies like post office. Okay, they don't have a huge history that you could trace back the evolution of manufacturing, the evolution of well, let me shut this off and we'll get on with it. 1 second. Okay, so we are not following the evolution of distribution of products, of services, and there has been an evolution. But right now, it's not really a tremendous feat of ingenuity for a company to have like a warehouse somewhere where the rent is like dirt cheap, and then buy a whole bunch of stuff from China, and then dump it into this warehouse, and then you know sell it on the eBay or whatever, and then have the mailman come in, or the UPS come in, pick up this stuff and ship it across the United States or across Canada. I mean, doing something like this is not work of a genius. Well, for example, some companies are now like using faster service, or using the same process to like take for takeout food, or distribute other products, and then distribution on the internet is like it happens in a heartbeat. But but this is like there is a disconnect here, because the companies that do all this stuff, like meat packing, company that's like distribute products, the companies that repair roads, they were built in a certain era. Maybe the machineries, the stuff was built in the 50s or the 60s, and this company formed. And then the technology progress, there is better machinery, cheaper kind of devices. There is now robots, but many companies, American or otherwise, they don't evolve like that. The people that made the company, like the employees or somebody that came in and worked in the company, they're very stuck with that technology, and also because their livelihood depends on this technology, they tend to try to like maintain it no matter what, even though it's very inefficient, or it's and also when the processes that generate wealth in that company, they might die, and they have many of them have died. For example, the process to distribute food or fast food, you know, a certain part of the population might not want to eat that kind of fast food, but the people that are in there, they will try to keep the company going. And then after the 2008, many of these processes had died, and these companies, the only way they could make money was by borrowing money real cheap, and then buying their own stock and profiting from derivatives, which which is saying that the company didn't really exist. The processes that generated wealth or sold stuff to consumers, they did not exist. They were not part of the agenda of the company. They were just the shell, and the shell went on, and the CEOs, they kept borrowing against the shell, against the Sears, against the retailers like Macy, and then some of the money went into their pocket, some went to elevate their own stock price. But when you look at these companies, you see, hey, this company, the way it used to make money was to sell high-end perfume to middle-aged ladies, wealthy ladies. What happened? Well, they have now in this shell of a company, they have some of those. They have nice perfumes, but this is there only as a force of tradition because this company existed a while ago. But that process of somebody looking at their sales, buying or distributing things that this group of real customers would want to buy, that process that was the company had died. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Well, this happens. It happens in many companies, and people, they don't wanna let these companies die, and they're gonna go on. I don't know, but what happens is that because of all these changes, then other companies that sell to this group of wealthy middle-aged ladies that buy a bottle of perfume for like $200. This process exists, but this company, Macy's or Sears, they're not doing that anymore. They went bankrupt. They did so many strange things. They're done. They're dead. But then somebody else will come in and rediscover this, and then we'll have other companies. No matter what these older companies say, they're dead, basically. But well, I work in this. I got this new site as a security guard, and this site is actually two parts. It's very upscale, very expensive apartments, and I think the people that live there, they're usually really affluent, really got lots of cash. You can tell by the cars, by the price tag, but as part of this complex, there's also a mall, a strip mall with many stores. This is a pretty big size strip malls, and I have to. I don't know. In the past, there might have been two security guards, but now it's only me. And the boss told me you are to spend more time, like 3/4 of your time, on the upscale condominiums, patrol there and this and that, but spend like a quarter going through all the sensors in these strip mall. But the strip mall, I was talking to a lady there. She said the strip mall, it's kind of has really died out. Well, there is a anchor store. They have Trader Joe's. I think Trader Joe's is open some hours of the day because I was going by the store. I saw that there were some workers inside. They were doing some stuff. So I don't think that this store had died. But then I was talking to these two ladies from the complex. I told them I think many of these companies are going to be dead or they'll never come back. But then she said, yeah, but I said maybe Trader Joe's will come back. And then we were talking about the Marshalls, which is like a store that women like. And I said maybe the Marshalls will go out, will never come back. But then the other lady, she got really excited. Said, "No way!" Because Marshalls sells to women a lot, has a loyal customers, and the prices are not like Macy's or Sears. You can find good stuff at a reasonable price. So I don't think that one will die. But then I go through the mall. Every store is there. Every restaurant, upscale restaurant, every retail shop. Well, I worked in another strip mall, and like 60% of the mall closed. But the stores that were food store, they were having takeout. But uh, there has been a death. The U.S. economy has died. These people, the analysts and people who talk about this stuff, they think that something is coming back. It's not. Only the hardest companies with very loyal customers, they're gonna survive. And distribution of anything is going to move into into online. Well, I don't know. I think that some young women, what they do is go through stores, some stores, upscale stores, and test the clothes or what they want, and then they go find that equivalent online, get it at half price or a third price. But hey, distribution, manufacturing, it has evolved. It's entering its singularity, and it will totally move into online. And because the customer can interact in many ways through software, through teleconferencing with the seller in many ways, or even send the product back if they're not happy. Well, I think that the retailing is going to have a very difficult time in the future, and it's going to be completely changed. I don't know if at some point we'll have some kind of device like holographic teleconferencing, something like that, that you could communicate as if you're really walking through the store. But the hologram that's in front of you, you might have like a kind of like a half dome, small half dome, or something that forms like electronically, and then you're walking in and you actually see like a pretty sales lady, and you can talk to her in real time, something like that. But then even now, the technology is there. While I was going through Facebook. I found two of my classmates. They are both Azeri women. They're very pretty. I had left them messages on the messenger on Facebook, but they didn't return it. Well, when I was on the Facebook, there was this another Azeri girl. She's from Iran. She's real pretty, like knockout. and she had found me, and she had left some messages, and she was in the list of my friends. I started talking to her, and we exchanged numbers. I went back to after a few hours. I had her number in Iran, and she has mine. And then she had left me a message in the WhatsApp, and I left her a message too, like, well, this area of interacting with the opposite sex, with trying to find a mate, or love, or wife, or whatever. This this is very important to many people. You can see some of the sitcoms that become very successful is all under this theme of matchmaking, finding women, socializing with women. I think women are very important, not economically, not only economically, but socially and personally. And I don't know how this entire department, which feeds all the bars, all the restaurants, all the strip bars. Well, I want to go into this discussion. Uh, it's gonna get a little porno, but just bear with me, okay? And not everything is your business, okay? Uh, because the society, the social part has died, or because governments and institutions, they have a lockdown, and they have instituted many stupid rules and surveillance on this space in the social life that's in the open, right? Then this part is going to migrate home. It's going to become a very private affair, and people are going to interact, or they're going to find the mate. It's all going to go online. It's all it's going to become decentralized, because you're going to be communicating, or I would be communicating with just one person, and there is no oversight. Nobody can come in and make some rules or charge some fee. This is a very revolutionary kind of change. Well, uh, I've found out that I have a talent, and a lot of women show interest in me, but I found out that many lesbian couples, like real pretty ones, they are also looking for a boyfriend, and evolving into that menage a trois role. Hey, not everything is your business, and my private affairs are mine. But yeah, when things can go private, but also many companies, many economic processes can become privatized, which means that, like, one guy has widgets that he made, or things that he does, and he can sell it to only few or only select customers that they all know him on a personal level. Is but don't extend that to the comment I made before. I'm not selling anything to lesbians, but what I'm saying is that if I had a widget, then yes, I would be selling it privately. That many outside processes like taxing, regulations, they're all gonna die out. In fact, there is a site, it's called Silk Road, but a lot of that stuff is underground. But well, then uh, a lot of crimes will become privatized too, and that's really sad. But though there is a God. I mean, I won't be committing anything just because it's private. Well, I could go on this process, but just be aware that we are entering a new technological age, that many things that were very difficult to do in the past, they are, they are easy to do. Well, that brings us to the last discussion of what's happening right now with the coronavirus, and they have discovered that it was really Gates and his foundation that financed the COVID-19, and this has been going on for several years. And there is some discussion in foreign media that Gates hired different labs, or it was sponsored through CIA to enhance this virus, and they took it to China and distributed it there, and then it came back here. Well, that's kind of like a private crime. Like technology became available, somebody had a few dollars, they went and did it, and then they tried to support their eugenics philosophies, satanic tendencies, and they distributed these deadly toxins everywhere. And there is a psychic predictions by Edgar Casey says that there will come a time in U.S. history that the safety of many Americans will be a big question mark. That means this is our time when the U.S. government secretly develops many weapons and unleashes it on foreigners, and then they remake it or discover it like the Chinese did, and they send it back here. And then also because of the very ill publicity, they will develop a very hostile, unfriendly attitude towards American citizens in many foreign countries. And this is the beginning of Exodus. Well, actually, Pompeo was talking about that arranged for many of their people. I think that's a code word for many of their CIA operatives to relocate back to mainland United States. But well, how about Jack and Jill that went to Mexico, or they went to Iran, or Tajikistan, and they are not any part of this, but the U.S. government did all this stuff, and the locals, they look at these people, so maybe this guy, he uses camera too much, take pictures, maybe he's plotting against us, he's taking pictures, and then somebody else will come in with a drone. I don't know. I think Americans are going to get kicked out of many places, and their money is going to crash, and their safety will be a big question mark in the I don't know. I think we are very close to a war in Persian Gulf, but that's my opinion. And well, let me just leave it at that because I'm very distracted from my original thought. If you can understand what I'm saying, my ideas, you're pretty smart. You should look into getting your own PhD. Thank you very much. Please leave comment, and also like subscribers, and don't be shy. Thank you.